Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bradford Cloud User Group April podcast. Or I can't remember what month it was. April podcast. Hello to my other co-management team, as I like to call them, Imran and Saj. How are you guys?
Good, Shabazz. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good, Imran. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. Yeah. Just tired, but it's nearly Friday.
Nearly Friday, definitely, mate. Definitely. So for those that are watching, you might have seen on social media that this month is all about Teams, Microsoft Teams and collaboration at the Bradford Cloud User Group. We've got a great lineup for our event coming on the 29th of April. And for our April podcast guest, as you can probably see from the banner below, which I've given the game away already, but we have none other than Mark Vale.
How you doing? You okay?
Hooray!
Hi, Mark. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Good to be here. How's the weather up north?
Cold.
I'm not far from you. I'm from Crewe.
Okay, it's not too far. It's quite it's actually quite tricky because you look outside and it's blue skies and sun, but then literally you open a window, it's freezing. Absolutely freezing.
Not yesterday, the day before, we had snow and hail and sunshine and wind all the same day.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Probably. So again, I think as you might have heard on the introduction, we've kind of dedicated this whole month to Teams, Microsoft Teams. Try and have a theme every month. We've got some great speakers at our event at the end of the month.
Yes.
But we just wanted to get you on and just kind of obviously there's quite a few things coming up quite big that you're involved in coming up, which we'll get into. You've obviously just had the MVP recently. So we just thought it'd be good to get you on, just to talk about a few topics, really. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. Keeps you away from the bath duties, so all good.
So, Mark, for those who don't know you, could you give us a little introduction about yourself, please?
Yeah, so obviously my name's Mark. I've been a Microsoft techie for about 10 years now, professionally. So I've cut my teeth in a high school as an IT technician, worked my way up into white label third line support, into consultancy, been specializing in Skype for Business now and Teams. Well, Teams since it was born, Skype for Business since it was linked 2010, 13. Worked for a number of UK companies in my full-time career and decided 3 or 4 years ago now to go independent. So I'm an independent contractor now, currently contracted to Modality, which if anybody is in the UC space will probably know that name. So I've been doing Teams migrations on the voice side now for the last 3 years, and last year obviously with COVID and what have you, it's been pretty hectic and still hectic now.
Yeah.
So
okay, it is. Yeah, it's growing, isn't it? It's always growing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just a normal guy, techie at heart, likes to get his hands dirty, and nobody special.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all 4 of us have got in common. We're the same. Just techies like to get his hands dirty.
Yeah.
Geeks at heart, I think.
Yeah.
So, Mark, Commsverse, you're down as a co-founder of this event. It's coming up quite soon, I think. Can you tell us about this? How it came about?
So Commsverse, actually, I founded it in 2019. Spoke to a couple of my friends, Randy Chapman, Martin Bohm. If you're in the UC space on Twitter, Socialverse, then you'll know them as well. Asked them to come and help me because doing it on yourself is quite a big task. But I had this idea in 2019. I was like, well, the events that Microsoft do in the UK and the events that like the media people do, like UC Expo and what have you, they're already kind of focused on the marketing side of tech, and they want sales managers and business decision makers to go there to see, to try and basically sell them a vision, and that's all cool and what have you. But from me being a techie at heart, it wasn't really the event for me. I'd go there with all kinds of enthusiasm and then end up being disappointed because I wasn't getting the technical content that I'd hoped I'd get at those events. And then I went to America to Commsverse Next, which is another community conference, and that kind of reignited the this is the type of conference that I will want to come to. But flying to America, even when you're paying yourself, is a expensive experience. It was worth it for me, but I thought, well, those guys in the States are doing a great job there. I'd love to replicate at least some of that in the UK, so that I would enjoy an event and people with the similar sort of requirements of a conference would like to too. So Commsverse is a dedicated Microsoft Teams tech conference, a true tech conference. We're not about sales. Yes, we do have sponsors and exhibitors there to sell stuff, but all our content is pure tech. This is like probably 50% of the sessions are like expert level sessions, like deep dive under the bonnet, no sales fluff, just pure honest experience from people like ourselves, who've lived and breathed helping customers migrate, use, manage, or even if you work for who are end customers to me, if you work for businesses who are using Teams, then you're also want to know what's coming next and if you're doing it right. So the conference is set up for that purpose.
I think for me, Mark, what's the big attraction around Commsverse is the sort of people, because I know a lot of the people actually that have applied to present, and they've all got so much experience. It's the keyword experience. It's people presenting their experience. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not
Why didn't you submit your session?
Sorry?
Why didn't you submit your session?
Teams isn't really it's not one of my strongest points from a technical perspective. But what I mean is it's the experience bit, and that's what I know the feedback we've had around the content we're doing at the user group and stuff. It's that's what people want to see. They want to see real life techies, what they've experienced, rather than you've got to have sponsors, of course, but rather than someone plugging a specific service, it's about look, this is how I have done this in Teams. This is how I've deployed that. This is a cool service that I've used. And that's what kind of, I think you guys agree, don't you, that's what kind of attracts us to sessions in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's that as well. And you want sessions where people say, do you know what, it works, but watch out for these pitfalls. We fell into this hole and, and this is how we got out of it. Don't make the same mistake as what we did, And it's learning from that experience that people have, been on, as well as the recommended practices that you see on Microsoft Docs site and what pre-sales people will tell you Teams can do and all that type of stuff. You want to know really what you let yourself in for, and that's where we're at really. We're really kind of focused on real world content rather than the sort of make-believe fairy tale. And that's what people want. Like you say, we did a virtual conference last year instead of in person, for COVID reasons, of course.
Yeah.
Feedback was great. And they wanted to come in person. The improvements were, let's do it in person so we can have a beer and maybe focus more on the sort of deeper dive technical sessions rather than the nice conferencey sessions, which are like level 100s, like the introduction ones. So this year we've gone more into deep dive technical piece to, based on that feedback. So hopefully it should be a really valuable conference for anybody who's in Microsoft Teams, whether they're managing it within their own organization or whether they're helping their customers, to quote, was it such a, to empower and achieve more.
Would you prefer, going forward, would you prefer the in-person events, or would you prefer the virtual events, or a mix of both?
I think the future is hybrid. I know that's sitting on the fence, but obviously we've run a few virtual events now. The biggest one, obviously, July last year, where we had like 72 hours non-stop of content. The effort that goes into those virtual events from organizers, speakers, and what have you is probably around 200-300% more than what an in-person event would cost. Yeah, not cost, but or cost in time and effort, I guess.
Yeah.
But people, to try and get people engaged is quite hard with a virtual conference.
Yeah.
And people will register and they'll know that the session will be on demand. It'll be recorded, so I'll watch it at a later date. So they'll never pack their bag in the night before or set their alarm clock and make sure they're booked out for the day and they're all in with an in-person conference. They'll always kind of just treat it as a business meeting, and if something more important comes up, that will take precedence over sitting in front of a Teams meeting watching somebody present on a topic, because they know they can just access it later. But conversely, if you can't afford to come to an in-person conference and you're more bothered about the content, then virtual events is perfect for you, even if you don't join them live. Trying to replicate that, bumping into each other on the way to grab a coffee, you're never going to replicate that in virtual events. We tried virtual reality. We built a custom world in Altspace VR. I think we were the first conference to show the way with that. And it was really good, but then again, the entry level into that experience is quite high for attendees, because they need high-powered machines and headsets and what have you to get the fullest experience. But nevertheless, it brought that spatial audio around, and that you could walk through the world and bump into people. It was a bit more natural, but that's as close as we could get. Yes, we can do chat, we can do Q&A, but it's never those spontaneous connections that will just never get made in virtual. So in person definitely is coming back. A lot of people think that the in-person events are dead. They certainly are at the moment, because we can't do them. But what I am seeing is a definite intent from a lot of people that they want to come to an in-person event. Obviously, we're scheduled at the moment, as things stand, for the end of June, and we're still selling tickets today. That they are going. We're getting sponsors saying, "Can we sponsor you?" There's a lot of excitement there of people coming back, but equally there's a lot of trepidation as well. So the first event back in person isn't going to be if you're in an event that was 20,000 people, like Microsoft Ignite, for instance, those events aren't going to come back for a number of years, because the risk level, you've got people going in airports, mixing with whoever, sharing multiple airplanes, all coming together and doing God knows what. If it was me, 20,000 person conference, I'm a conference organizer, I wouldn't go. But we're a 500, 400 type person in-person event. That, to me, when everyone's vaccinated, or whether we have to have like the pre-test and negatives and what have you, that's probably less of a risk, because it's more of a focused audience. So I think my size event and events around the sort of sub 1,000 person events, I think they will come back this year. I hope to come back this year, because it means I'll do an event. But there is going to be that need for that hybrid connection. So we're doing a hybrid conference this year, and what that means is that whatever we present in person will be available online, and it'll be available at the time that person is delivering the session. So there's no waiting around for on demand. We have we got an online platform that gives people some ability to interact, but it's more about getting them to see the content, because that's what people will want for a virtual event. Some of the sessions we've got, we're mixing in-room AV with a Teams meeting and using NDI to, if you've watched Saturday Night Takeaway with the screen at the back and the virtual audience, we're looking to do something like that for some of the key events in our flagship room, so we can bring a hybrid audience into a live session, so they will feel a part of the event. We can't do it for all sessions because of the costs involved of the computer technology to do it, and bandwidth as well, but we are going to give people the ability to do that. And conversely, for speakers who might not be able to attend for international travel reasons, we'll bring them in as a remote speaker, much like we're doing now, but we'll have them on the on the screen with their video and content and present to an in-room audience and mix the audio. in some of the cases. But it's all very dependent on international travel and the restrictions around what you can and can't do, whether you need to be vaccinated, whether you need to have a PCR test 48 hours before and after the event, and all that type of stuff. All those things are up in the air right now. So I certainly think for the next few years, hybrid events are going to be the way forward, because anybody thinking that they're going to go back to full capacity in the next 5 years is living a dream.
I was just going to say, we were talking about MS Ignite, and I joined MS Ignite, not this one, the one previous to this one. It was in September. And I struggled because of the time difference. I couldn't attend, they were obviously going on from 4 p.m. all the way till 9 in the morning, UK time. But when you say, I'll catch up with the recordings later, I've still not caught up with a lot, but no, you don't. It's difficult. Yeah,
it is very difficult. And I'm a firm believer in trying to do live virtual events rather than pre-recorded. Now, when we did Commsverse 2020 on Teams, everything was live because it gave people a reason to be there. And if they weren't there, they weren't going to get the content until days later, because we had to rip out all the Teams live events and put them in Camtasia, upload them to YouTube and what have you. That took a few days, especially with 230 odd sessions. But yeah, even with your best intentions, I'll watch it later, you very rarely do. So you have one opportunity to make your virtual event almost create a FOMO for being there and making time for it. But to your point with the time zones, there is this weird expectation from attendees, and I don't mean this in a derogatory format or any shape or form, is that the event should be in their local time zone. But it's like, well, it's 4 p.m. my time, I can't really join it. It's kids' bath night and all that type of stuff. Can you not do it at 10 o'clock in my morning? And even if you did that, it'll be somebody else who will suffer as a result. So I actually think the big conference format for online doesn't fit. So what we've done this year, we're doing 4 virtual events, 1 each quarter, and we're simplifying it down to half-day events. And we're saying, right, we're doing it we're doing it on an afternoon in UK time, 12 till 4. We've got 6 sessions. It's all on one type of theme. It should fit an attendee profile that that might appeal to 500-600 people rather than 5,000 or 6,000 people. But we'll get more people turn up to that event than if we try to do like a MS Ignite, like all your sessions are happening at once.
Good idea.
We did that in July. We did that in January. We've got another one coming up on May the 11th, which is all about Teams Voice. Again, that's a 12 till 4 event. It's 6 sessions, 30 minutes long. It's preset content. So it's all narrative. So every session leads on to the next. So it kind of gives you the full picture. We have a couple of breaks. We're not trying to force networking in those breaks. We're just letting people get on with their day, check their email, check their Teams, and then come back for another two set session. And that works really well. So when we did that in last, we had 480 people register for the event, which we thought was a good first shout. And 75% of those turned up on the day, versus at the conference that we did in July, which was like the all like multi-track, the basically replicate in-person conference to the virtual. We had 2,500 people register and about 900 turn up, so it was like 40% turnout. So by focusing down and doing a small event, it really gives you the opportunity to really sell that event to the interested people, and you appeal to a smaller set of people, but those are going to turn up more so than trying to tell a bigger story and what have you. So we did that, and it works really well.
It's interesting what you said earlier about engaging people and trying to engage people and get their attention around the event you're doing. Obviously, we're only a user group, but even we're struggling to, relatively new. We're going to have our 3rd event at the end of the month, but we're struggling to engage people and basically get people interested in join. I think someone said it on Twitter. I think Gregor Sutty said he's got virtual session burnout.
Yeah, before COVID, there were like literally a handful of virtual events, and there were a handful of physical events, and we all kind of were in our own little bubble and own little world, and we never really competed with each other. But when COVID happened, everybody decided that they could run a virtual event, and all of a sudden there's events going on every week, every day, and there's that much out there that that if you miss an event on one week, you could probably join another event next week with the same speaker doing the same session.
Yeah.
So trying to show your value it's highly competitive. But it's a good opportunity in another way, because now you can use an online following, an online audience, to then filter into an in-person event. So hopefully, in-person tickets will kind of sell themselves. But to your point, it is very hard to break out of your social circles.
Yeah.
And for us, trying to get sort of the power users, end users, business decision makers at a physical event, all my Twitter connections, Martin's and Randy's and LinkedIn, they're all techies. We can grab an attendee profile of half of what the sponsors want, but we need to break out of that sort of circle, and trying to get attention is quite hard. It is very hard, but it takes time, perseverance, and it might look spammy, but you've got to keep on it every day. Sign up to like automated social managers like SmarterQ and stuff like that. Pay your fee for it. Schedule your tweets, get them on recycle, share other content, and it is basically paint by numbers. You just got to do it, and eventually you'll start seeing your count increase and increase and increase. But I don't think that anybody can go say, I think I'm going to do a virtual event. Hey, everybody, one tweet out, and all of a sudden I'm going to get 5,000 registrations. It doesn't work like that, So it's a lot of hard work, and a lot of people don't realize that the effort that it goes into is not just about running the technology. It's not just about turning up on the day. This is kind of like, it's almost a full-time job for me on top of my full-time job. So there's been times where I've not gone to bed till 1-2 in the morning. Wow. Because I spend from 8 p.m. till 2 doing organizing stuff, whether it's website updates and modifications, or sending emails to sponsors, or arranging stuff with suppliers, all that type of stuff. So it's a lot of work. It's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure.
I mean, again, like I said, yours is triple, quadruple the scale that we're doing. So we're finding it quite difficult. Funny thing is, we're not even hitting the demographic that we want to hit. We're the Bradford Cloud User Group, so we're going to be based in Bradford. And that's because that's roughly where we're all local to. And there's nothing in Bradford, there's no sort of user group in Bradford. But because we're not in person yet, and we are starting to discuss planning an in-person one for the hopefully end of summer. We're not even hitting. It's all techies at the moment that are online that we know online. We're not even hitting those. We want people from Bradford to come and IT.
Well, there are a few tricks that you can do. So, I mean, you can leverage LinkedIn quite well. If you use the search functionality, the advanced search tools in LinkedIn for free on your account, then you can filter your second and third connections within a locality and what have you. So that's basically what I do. So I'll spend a number of hours a week just on LinkedIn trying to source potential targets, I guess. People who I think I would want at my event, and basically try and connect with them and see if they would be interested, and that's in the virtual world. That's the only kind of way that you can really kind of do it, because you don't have word of mouth, because people don't meet in the streets or in the office and say, oh, I'm going to Bradford User Group today, or where is it? Oh, it's at some community centre or arena or something like that, and oh, here's a link to the meetup and all that type of stuff. You miss all that opportunity. So you've got to kind of do the hard work yourself. It's a lot of effort. You'll get more go-aways, and you'll get people interested, and you just got to be tough-skinned and take it on the chin.
Yeah.
And in your connection, always personalize your invite for your connection and state your case, right? Don't try and be cliched about, like, I want to extend my network and all that type of stuff. Just go, look, I've got an event. I've looked at your job title and where you are. You might be interested. If you are, then, please accept my connection. If they accept, follow up with a message saying, thanks for connecting. Here's a link to my user group. See you there, and just leave it at that. And you'll find that slowly that you'll start to reach the people that you want. But
That's really good advice.
It takes time, and you just got to stick with it. So,
Mark, you worked in IT for a decade. How come you chose to specialize in Teams?
I fell into it. I didn't choose it. It chose me, I guess.
It chose you.
So I used to work as a third line Microsoft engineer at a sort of channel partner, and they used to sell managed services to their partners, who then used to sell it to their customers, and we used to support them. So I supported anything from desktop to anything server with a Microsoft logo on it. So, Exchange, AD, everything, ISA, IAS, the works, RDS. And then one day the managed service director came and said, "Oh, by the way, we've sold a managed service contract starting on Monday for Microsoft Link server, just to let you know." All right, okay, what's that? And it was like, well, we'll send you on a course, but we've got to support it from Monday. So kicking and screaming into doing Link, but decided that once I was doing it, it's actually really enjoyable. So and at that point, it really kind of ignited sort of the spark inside me, and I enjoy doing voice stuff now. But obviously, Skype has now evolved into Teams, so a lot of people are wanting to either come from Skype for Business Server to Teams Enterprise Voice, or they want to come from a myriad of PBX systems to Teams Enterprise Voice, and then I end up doing the voice migration. So session border controllers, SIP, and all that funky stuff is where I live. And like most things in life, you just kind of just find your path. And at the moment, it's a Teams path. Whether it's Teams path in the future, who knows? But I go where the work is, basically.
Just touch on, obviously, you mentioned Skype for businesses. I can imagine quite a few businesses still out there that are using the older sort of technologies like Skype for Business on premises or even cloud managed. Should these businesses be looking to migrate to Teams? Obviously, everything has an end of life. Is it a best time to migrate to Teams, you think?
And I'm going to use the consultant sentence, it depends, right? So it really does depend, right? Skype for Business Server isn't going to go anywhere. Skype for Business Server 2015 is still under support till 2025, I think, or 2024. Okay. Skype for Business Server 2019 is obviously out. That's under support as well to the same date, bizarrely, but there's no material difference between the two as such in terms of feature set. So there is a on-premises solution that's there, fully supported, and if that use case fits your business, it's fine. You don't need to come to Teams if you don't have a material reason to. And to get to Teams Voice, you have to embrace collaboration, which is a whole different ball game. And then you start talking about GDPR, data compliance, security, information protection, guest access. And you've got to solve all those challenges before you get to voice. Whereas Skype for Business is just IM, meetings, and voice. It's a island product, as it were. So a lot of people have, having to solve the collaboration story first, which a lot of businesses have already, which is why we're seeing the final step of the voice migrations now. But like everything, it has a shelf life. There's been no features added to Skype for Business 2019 that you can't have in 2015. In fact, there are more features in 2015 than there are in 2019 server. So there is a very, very clear, direction that Microsoft are pushing, is that the cloud is your best and probably soon to be only option if you want to stay in the Microsoft sphere. It has its benefits, of course. You don't have the compute or the complexities of keeping the infrastructure up to date and all that type of stuff. But conversely, there's been a lot of publications. There's a lot of noise around about a few outages Microsoft have had in recent weeks, and people who are reliant on more than 4.9 SLAs for their voice services might think a little bit harder whether Teams is the right solution for them at this moment in time. Obviously, we do have this Teams survival branch appliance, which is due to release this quarter, I think, which should solve any of those cloud outage problems. But yeah, it really depends where you are in your journey. It also really depends on other things like Exchange. If you've got an Exchange on-prem solution, then go into Teams before your mailboxes are online. You're going to get a optimum experience to your users because calendar functionality is not going to work as well and all that type of stuff. So, if you're going to go to Teams, you've got to go and tick the boxes, right? You've got to go and embrace OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online, Exchange Online. You get to Teams because obviously Teams is an app that overlays on top of all those Microsoft 365 services. So it's really, you've got to go all into the cloud to get to the point where you can use Teams as a sort of line of business app. So there's a lot of work for you to do if you're traditionally on premises these days before you get to enjoy the benefits of Teams.
So the question itself was fairly simple, but you don't realize how complicated the answer is, that because what you just said there as well, it depends. There's so many other aspects. It's not just as simple as Skype to Teams. There's collaboration, there's Exchange, there's telephony. There's so much more to think about than just Skype to Teams. And I think because I suppose the way it's maybe marketed, that Teams is like the next step in your Skype journey. People probably, I made that mistake. A lot of people probably make that mistake.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a mistake or not, I think it's an intentional mistake in some points, because we have this migration coexistence mode called Islands mode, which basically means you can use Teams today and keep your Skype for Business stuff online on premises, and the two don't interact with each other. But the net result is that users have a split experience. You end up talking to like Saj in Teams, for instance, and then halfway through the conversation, you'll switch to Skype, and then you have a split conversation across both. But it allows you as a business to start, dipping your toe in the water, so to speak, with Teams while you're trying to figure out your journey to the end goal. But that, in my experience, has always been a harder path for businesses to get to the end goal, rather than having a sort of a staggered approach, going, right, we've got Skype for Business on-prem. We're going to move meetings first to Teams because Teams meetings, they rock. Skype meetings suck. If I compare it to, right, there's no denying that. Instant win. I'll move my meetings to Teams. I'll get people used to the UI, and then I'll work on my complicated bit later.
Yeah,
it's a journey, and the other thing that a lot of businesses haven't really grasped, is that your journey never stops.
Yeah.
Once you're in the cloud, especially in Teams with features getting released every day, every week, and what have you, your project never ends, because you've got a certain set of features today that you'll enable, and then tomorrow there'll be a whole bunch of new features. And how do you then enable those features and use those features, more importantly, within your business, and tell your end users and how to use those features? So it's kind of gone into this evergreen model now, where it's a constant piece of work to make sure you're on top of the roadmap, making sure that you're ready to accept those new features. And as a business, it's basically turn it on or turn it off, right? So you've got to be prepared to what you're going to be doing. And then obviously if you're turning them on, then you've got to be able to communicate that out to your user base that these features are coming and that this is how to use it. So that involves training and adoption, on an ongoing basis. So it's definitely a different way of doing things.
So you're an MVP, Microsoft Most Valued Professional, for the second time now. You were awarded.
Oh yeah, 2 year sabbatical. Yeah.
Would you say your experience when you achieved your first MVP award was different to your second? And what would you recommend for those people who are on that journey, on the same kind of journey?
Yeah, I think both experiences are different. Obviously, nothing beats that first experience when you go from like never having it to having it. That's a different experience than if you've had something before and you've lost it and you've got it back. It's like, well, it's nice, but it's not as shiny as the first time. The biggest thing I would say is that if you're trying to be an MVP, then you're doing it wrong. And I kind of fell into that category the first time because I think I tried too hard and put too much pressure on myself to try and contribute. And I mean, for the first one, I was nominated, I think, 11 times before I eventually got awarded, So, and it became more of a competition in my head. And once I got awarded, it was that elation, but then it quickly followed, but I've achieved it now, what do I do? And then all of a sudden my motivation fell through the floor, and I found it hard to come up with blogs and stuff like that like I used to do. But equally, it's a change in circumstance, because when I first became an MVP, it was all on-prem server, right? Teams wasn't about. Cloud was just, Office 365 migrations basically meant Exchange mailbox moves to Exchange Online. People weren't embracing Office 365 or Microsoft 365 it is now in the full feature set. And then content, just became a bit more regurgitatory, because Microsoft would basically release all the tech stuff in advance, and it doesn't leave you anything to work with. Obviously, when you deployed on-prem servers, you have niches and nuances that happen because of custom environments, but with the cloud, it's much more like you get what you get, and the experience between customers is the same because the cloud is is consistent. And then personal life as well, as I didn't contribute enough, so quite rightly, I lost the MVP, and I was all right with that, and I didn't start Commsverse to get it back. In fact, it was the last thing on my mind, to be honest. I thought, well, I achieved it, and that was great. I got the awards, you can see them up. Where is it?
Oh, yeah.
And all that type of stuff. And they can't take that away from you, so you've done it, bought a t-shirt, happy days. Laurie Potmeyer nominated me for my efforts with Commsverse, and, I went through with the nomination form. I was lucky to get back in. But now it's much more kind of back end of my mind, because, if you bring that to your forefront again, you start doing the stuff that you've been doing for the last 12 months for different reasons. And then you start putting pressure on yourself, and you go, I must do this, or I must do a user group, or I must do an online event, or what have you. I must whack out 20 blogs and 30 YouTube videos, and it'll burn you out. It'll drive you crazy. So if you're trying to be an MVP, you're doing it wrong. Just concentrate on what you're doing and trust that at someday your time will come. You'll get noticed and you'll get rewarded. And if you don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to suddenly make your salary go up by 20 grand a year or anything like that. It has no monetary value.
And also, it doesn't mean that your content is less valuable than anyone else's. Your content is your own experience, isn't it? It's whether you're MVP or not.
Yeah, that's it. There's plenty of cases where you follow people's blogs and they've helped you out, and you see them active all the time, and they are your go-to encyclopedia for all things what they contribute. And then all of a sudden they'll announce that they've been awarded MVP, and you go, hang on a minute, I thought you were one anyway. you know. So it doesn't have any bearing on you as a person. And you know, you in this day of age, you know, you've kind of got to contribute a little bit to community to get your profile out there, because there's no denying it. When you have a blog or you do YouTube videos or user groups, it raises your profile in places that you wouldn't have thought of, and it does open doors. There's no denying that, you know. But you don't need the MVP badge to have that, you know. So it's great to have, but don't treat it like a certificate or, you know, an exam. You've just got to just trust that eventually you may get noticed. If you do, great. If you don't, it's not going to impact your life and your professional life at all. And just don't feel sad about it, to be honest.
It's interesting. We've asked a few people that same question. We asked Gregor, and Richard Hooper, exactly, almost word for word, the same thing. Don't aim for it. It's not a target that you should try and achieve. Just do, you know, if you enjoy contributing, if you enjoy doing blogs and videos and user groups, just do it, and it will happen because it's all community based, and it will happen. Just don't aim for it.
That's it.
Which is really, again, great advice again. What I find probably most valuable out of doing my own content and reading others is their experience. So, you know, you could have 5 different people talking about the same topic, but you'll find they've all got a different experience. Like, one had a problem with a certain feature, and this is how they resolved it, or one person didn't like this feature, so they used a different feature, or so it's the experience, I think, and that's what I try and blog video about, what I've done. You know, like all of us, we're not going to say that we know all the answers, but all we can tell you is what we've learned from our own experience, and I know that's why I'm trying to capture in my sort of YouTube stuff, especially. I always make a point of saying that this is my experience. This is not me telling anybody how to do anything.
That's it. Yeah, you've got to stay humble, right? No one knows it all, and there's 10 different ways to do the same thing these days, you know. And you just got to. You might do something one particular way. I might do it a little bit different, but we could each learn from each other, because you might not know the way that I've done it, and it might just light an idea up in the future. And equally the same for me. Go, well, actually, my process was 10 steps. Shab's, it was 5 steps. I'm going to use his next time, you know. So we all help out that way, you know. I feel sorry for the people in the 1980s who didn't have the internet, who had to solve computer problems, right? Because they're completely geniuses. So compared to us these days, you know, it's just like it's chief Google it. It's all in your Google skills.
That's our escalation point, Google.
That's it. Yeah, you know, that's my 4th line support. That is.
I'm going to have to edit that part out, because if actual non-IT people get wind of that, they're all screwed. So.
Giving away trade secrets now.
Mark, you know, you've been public speaking for a while now. You're here talking to us. So if somebody wants to get into public speaking, what's your advice to them? Where do they start?
I don't do a lot of public speaking, because I tried it a few times, and I'm all right getting up in front and talking to my teams, because I probably know that I'm the brightest in the room there, and I can speak with confidence. But when you stood in front of a room full of your peers, that's nerve-wracking for me, and I always feel that I never really deliver the content in the way that I have it in my head, and that's because I'm an introvert. So I think if you're going to get into public speaking, you've got to be in the right mindset of knowing and having that confidence to stand up in front of people and get your point across in the best way possible. I decided to focus my energies on trying to promote, you know, new speakers into Commsverse, because a lot of people say that, oh, we have a new speaker track or a new speaker program or what have you. We're open to new speakers who want to give it a go. But in my experience, you know, that's great, but when they stand up on stage and they get stage fright and start sweating, they're on their own, you know. And so what I've done this year is that we've put some money aside for new speakers to say, right, if you're coming on, we'll give you a session, we'll put you in the flagship room, give you the best experience possible. We'll pair you up with a speaker who's done, you know, been on the circuit for years and knows what to expect, so that you can ask them any questions and that you want. They can give you some coaching on what to expect and how to do stuff. But also we're giving people the opportunity to take a 10-week course with a public speaking coach who will go through like the breathing techniques and the delivery methods and all that type of stuff as well. So hopefully on their journey to being able to deliver their session in June, they will be much more confident about, you know, their first experience than what they would be just if it was, yes, we'll give you your shots. So Sam O'Donnell, I don't know if you know him. He's new to the game, so he's on that program. So it'll be interesting to see his feedback when that's finished. So it's really the first step, the hardest step is making the decision that you want to go and do it. You know, what comes after that, take that on the chin, you know. Submit your content to as many conferences as you can, because you'll get turned back more times than you'll get accepted until you start building your name and presence and organizers start to know you. Because as much as we do call for content and we might just anonymize the names, you get to be able to identify the person just based on the content description. For instance, you'll know exactly who that person is, and you try not to be biased, but you end up being a little bit biased because you know that person will bring a crowd, whereas you know a new person probably won't. So then when you've got high competitiveness for a session, most conference places will take the easy route, unfortunately. But we try and be fair, and we reach out to people and say, you know, have you thought about speaking? We'll give you a shot. This is the program that we have. We'll be with you every step of the way, and that type of stuff. So for Commsverse this year, we've got 5 slots for new speakers where we put them on that program. And hopefully, you know, they'll get something out of it. But again, it's either for you or it isn't. If your gut instinct is nerves, then seek out people like ourselves who are going to help you overcome them if you still want to do it. But if your gut reaction is, no, I'd rather not, I'm forcing myself to do something that I'm not really comfortable with, then, you know, maybe it's not for you. It wasn't for me. I tried it. I'm not, you know, I'm not that proud to admit defeat on that one. So it's really just practice and look for those opportunities, really.
I've seen you publicly speak, Mark, so I think you've been a bit harsh on yourself, if I'm honest with you. But because honestly, that's kind of what, you know, like I said, that was the first event that I ever went to, and that's what kind of lit in my head. Wow, I'd love to be up there one day presenting. Obviously, must be about 3 years ago, but
yeah.
But it's funny you talk about new speakers. That's one of our main aims. We've been able to do it, and the next one we're doing it as well. We're trying to have a new speaker, a part of our event every month. So we've nipped in there and got Sam before you, unfortunately.
I'm gonna watch it. Take his training away from him now. Say it's all right. Bradford UG's gonna train you.
It is a virtual event, to be fair, so it's not quite public speaking, but we're saying we want to try and promote new people. Like our own Mr. Mohammed Sajid did his first ever virtual session at our first user group, and I think again I've only got into speaking since the virtual stuff. So for me, the one positive to come out of the pandemic is it's allowed me to, I suppose, get my profile raised, and so people seeing that I know for a fact there's a difference. I'm not denying that. There's definitely going to be a difference between speaking over a camera and doing it in person. I have no qualms about that, but at least I feel so much more confident about being able to speak in public because of
it will help, you know, and having the opportunity to to speak in what we're doing now, which is more of a conversational sort of session rather than on your own with a PowerPoint and a clicker, and you're sort of living by your slide to slide sort of thing. It's you drop your guard and you forget where you're at because you're having a conversation. So that will naturally build your confidence over time. But going straight in first speaking gig with a presentation in hand with a room full of people, like 80, 90, 100 people, what have you. I've seen new speakers visibly sweat buckets as they're about to start, and my heart goes out to them. And and it's like I try and like be at the front of the row, and I'm like, just take a breath, breathe. It's okay, you're doing fine. But 10 out of 10 to people who go and do that, because that takes balls, to go and do it. But what you'll find is that the first 10 minutes is pretty rough because that's when your nerves are the highest, and then you'll hit a rhythm and you'll forget where you're at. And it's a little bit easier with virtual because you don't get to judge the people in the room. It's a bit more disheartening in the room when you see people on their phones and on their laptops, but you've got to walk out, and you've got to accept that that's what happens. Even the best speakers in the world, that happens. And it is what it is. But you just got to rise above it and focus on the people who are eyeballing you and look at the reactions. And what I find that calms me sometimes when I used to do it was kind of focus on 2 or 3 people in the 4 corners that are really paying attention, because then I find myself speaking to them. And that calms my nerves, or did do at the point, but lots of tips, I guess. But it comes down to just being able to be able to confidently do it, and don't try and wing it. Don't think that you can knock up a PowerPoint the night before or the morning of your conference and just go and wing it. No rehearsal, what have you. Spend your time, rehearse it in front of your family, or what have you. If I look back to my younger days when I was at home, and you have like the sort of primary school like nativity, and you get given your lines. My mum used to make me stand on top of the stairs in the house, and she'd be in the kitchen and shut the door and says, right, you're going to do this now until I can hear you clear as day in the kitchen. And I hated it with a passion. But when it came to it, it was fine, right? You deliver your lines perfect. So practice is key, and don't be shy. Tom Morgan, if you know him, one of his tips is like go out on walks and with a selfie stick and a camera and record yourself doing it, and you'll be walking past people and you'll feel an idiot, and they probably won't care what you're doing. They just probably think that you're some kind of Insta celeb or something like that, TikTok hero. But it gets you practicing getting your voice out there in a public space.
Just want to finish off with, I suppose, what's next in your journey after Commsverse? Have you thought that far ahead, or you got anything else in your mind that you want to do, or is Commsverse
2022, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, it's named in such a way that if Teams dies in the future for some other brand or something other comes along in the UC space, we can quite easily sort of pivot to that. When you start having Teams in your title, you're kind of married to that name, and Microsoft haven't got a great track record of keeping names the same apart from Exchange. So for me, it was always, let's start it small, let's do it well, let's give people a VIP experience that they wouldn't get anywhere else. Make them feel that they're amongst friends, and not just a sheep in a field full of wolves, like some of the sort of like bigger expos. We want people to feel that they come into a place and they feel valued and they have a really great time. So we try and go above and beyond on that experience. And then it was to build on that, hopefully get to the point where we could do something maybe in a bigger venue with more people, and build it into something that is a destination and a marker on your calendar that people want to come to every year. And but it's never built to pay me my wages, So everything that we earn through sponsorship or ticket sales and what have you goes into the event. And we've got some amazing swag up for grabs in June. One being tickets to the Formula One Grand Prix at Silverstone this year.
Wow.
For 2 people. And if you put a money value on that, that's like £500-600 or whatever it was at the time. I can't remember. So you wouldn't get that at a free event sort of thing. So and you wouldn't get that at an event where we're trying to make margin because it's things. So our goal is to basically cover our costs and give us enough to put a deposit on the next year and start again. And we are a little bit different in terms of other community conferences where we're not free to the attendee. A lot of community conferences are free by default, and that's all well and good, but we do charge for an attendee ticket because it's a hell of an expense. It's like 150 grand to put on an in-person event of any, to the level that we're going for. And we think that, by people paying a small amount of money to turn up, we're not asking Ignite money like £2,000-3,000 a ticket, or some of the European ones that are £500 a ticket. It's like £50-60. That gives you food and drink, breakfast, lunch and dinner, snacks, drinks, like beer party and all that type of stuff. You will be cared for and made to feel special. But it means that we get really high value attendees as well. We get attendees who really want to be there, have a reason to be there, and not really looking for the day out of the office type of thing. We hope people see that. But what's next for me professionally, who knows? My contract with Modality ends in a couple of weeks. Who knows where I'll be in May? So but that's the life I lead. I mean, as long as I'm doing something that I enjoy, I can't see it changing. But I don't have a magic crystal ball. I could end up doing AWS next year. Who knows?
Boo.
I know, yeah.
Also, if another good selling point for Commsverse is at Mercedes-Benz World as well. So for any car,
go around the track in a nice fast AMG. That would be nice. So you'll have opportunity to win some hot laps that you can take while you're there and what have you. Nice. So we're trying to use the venue. We wanted a really cool venue to go to, and we think like the tech center of Mercedes. There's no real better venue for us.
Well, because this is going to be on YouTube, so I'll put all the links in the description for Commsverse, obviously, and all of your Mark socials, so anyone can get in touch with them if they want about the event. I mean, from us, I think that's really it, guys. Have you got other questions you want to put to Mark or?
No, not really. It's been a great session. Some great tips. So all I can say is, thank you very much for coming on. Taking out an hour or more of your time to come on and, share your experience, talk to us a bit about Commsverse. Truly appreciate you coming on, taking out time from your busy schedule to come and join us.
Yeah, no worries. Appreciate it. It's been good.
Well, thank you.
Anything from you, Saj?
Thank you, Mark, for attending. No questions at this time, though.
Perfect. No, yeah, thank you again, Mark. And for all, obviously, those people that are watching on the YouTube channel, definitely check out Commsverse. If you can't go in person, check it out on the virtual event that they're going to be doing. I think, as Mark said, there's a virtual event in the next week or two as well. So that's going to be a smaller virtual event. So check that out as well. Thank you to everybody who's watching. Until next time, goodbye.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Bye.